Good evening. If you have children or think that you want to have children one day who will go to school, this show is for you, because we're talking about that one thing that has every parent obsessing right now, that's school admissions. Yes, the rules are for the capital, they are out, but it's a debate that's across the country. Maybe it's not just about Delhi. So when the Lieutenant Governor rules that only neighbourhood children will get 70% of the points, is this a radical thought, a great idea, or is it something that we're not ready for yet? Our pundits this evening debating that and taking contrary positions on that. We have Sumit Vora, who represents the parents. They're very agitated, of course, about it. We also have Dr. D.R. Seni, who represents, he's the principal of DPS Arkipuram, one of the top schools in the city. Also, we have Annie Koshia, another principal from St. Mary's School. They're all taking different positions on it, so we'll hear from them in just a bit. Here are some of the other reactions that have come in about the new guidelines. Take a look.
That time of the year when parents brave the cold, take leave from work and stand fingers crossed in long queues outside schools. Yes, it's time for Mission Nursery Admission. This time, the Lieutenant Governor for New Delhi has come out with a new set of admission guidelines. Have they been of any use to you, the parent? Let's find out.
Under the new guidelines issued by the Delhi Lieutenant Governor Najib Jung, following an order passed by the Delhi High Court, there will be no management quota. This means no admissions will be left to the discretion of the school.
One way we are happy, we don't have to give seats to anybody. But then if you look at it from the management point of view, you know, there are obligations that you need to really give some seats to some people who have been really doing quite a lot, or they come late.
Sapna, the mother of 3.5-year-old, says getting a nursery admission in Delhi is tougher than Harvard or Oxford. Parents have welcomed the scrapping of management quota, but say the 6-kilometer neighbourhood criteria is a nightmare.
Many good schools are clustered in around, like especially in Vasant Vihar. Many schools are clustered there. But what about people staying in North Delhi? What about people staying in West Delhi?
Admissions open on January 15th, and private schools have already planned to protest against the new norms, which they say leave them with no room to maneuver. In New Delhi, with camera person Jagdish Prakash, Sonal Mehrotra, NDTV.
That brings up first talking point. Are the new guidelines as fair as possible? Mr. Vora, why do you think so?
I think they are quite fair. The reason being, any person without having any, alumni or sibling coming for the first time with a first boy child has got a very good chance. And our RTI revolves around the neighborhood concept only. It just mentioned neighborhood, nothing more. Neighborhood, random and just, which has never been done in the last 5 years. So giving 70 points to the neighborhood is a good...
and that's something in right to education as well.
Exactly. RT says only neighborhood, nothing else.
Annie Koshi, why you don't agree?
Well, I mean, he's right in saying that neighborhood is a very, very important criterion, has been talked about for very long. And the neighborhood should be kept in mind since students can get to school easily. But having said that, I think the lady earlier who said that there has been no mapping of schools in Delhi. So consequently, there are what are considered good schools in certain areas of the city, and there are no schools in other areas. And so that really means that children, schools sometimes, for instance, a school in Lodi Road will have hardly anybody to catch in the 6-kilometer radius, while Vasant Kunj will have, 20,000 schools. So that's the point that you have to really look at carefully.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would also like to say that it's quite amazing that when the government has put out norms for admission, that there are absolutely no mention of what are the criteria that will govern government schools and their admission to nursery. Have we set standards for government schools while we say how we should admit in private unaided schools?
But doesn't the neighbourhood policy apply there as well, Ms. Koshi? Doesn't the neighbourhood policy apply there?
No, but I just think that when the governor says that you should admit in a certain manner, I think in the same breath, he should also say that government schools have to have certain standards for pre-primary. Simple things like clean classrooms, qualified teachers, furniture that's working, colorful boards and all those kind of things should also be mentioned. And the RTE has one clause for private unaided schools. The whole of the RTE is actually to do with education for all children, and definitely the private unaided schools are not the bunch that cater to all children. Cannot cater to
Dr.
all
Saini,
children.
where do you stand on this issue? You've had, I mean, DPS Arkipuram gets a lot of applications as well. So are you welcoming this?
Midway.
Midway, which is why we said can't say in your, that's how we get rid. What doesn't appeal to you?
May I ask one thing?
Yes, sir.
First thing, always first. Number one, why the rules were framed or guidelines were framed? What were the considerations which we were following, and all concerned stakeholders were, whether it was good or bad, that is not my point. There was a system, there was a usage, there was a custom, there was a law, and it was accepted. Now what was the merit and demerit of previous one?
But people had problems with that. I think
the problem will again be there.
What is the problem this time?
Problem is there, we need good schools for our children.
Yes.
Why this situation is arising? Why the student or the parent want public school?
Yes.
Who is responsible? This question.
Okay, I can see the lady who's sitting that side nodding vigorously. You have a problem with this. Tell us what your problem is.
Because ma'am, now the choice is limited for the parents. Like within 6 kilometers, if we don't have a school.
Yeah.
So like the parent, it will be difficult for a parent.
You don't have a good school in your area?
No, I am not specifying any particular area. I am saying if we don't have a good school in any...
That's a huge problem.
Yeah, that is, within 6 kilometers, then won't it be difficult for a parent?
Yeah, and that's the talking point I want to bring up next as well, that this new system, and I think Annie Koshi and you also talked about it, about where exactly it is. Are these guidelines biased towards certain areas? As you said, Lodi Road may not have that many, Vasant Vihar, Vasant Kuch, a lot of places have that. So, do you think that's a problem for a lot of parents?
Not for a lot of parents, but yes, that's a problem. And there's one more major problem that's going to come is parents whose kids are already going and have got sibling criteria. Let's say Mr. Saini's school, someone is coming from 9 kilometers away.
Yeah.
The purpose of sibling is defeated because he'll be getting 0 point in the neighborhood. So, he'll be getting 20 points.
Okay.
So, they cannot send the same child to his school again.
But what about people, I think Annie Koshi, you were saying that as well, a lot of online things that I'm reading as well is that they're saying that every place doesn't have very good schools. Is that something that you see as well?
Well, I mean, you see, the perception of a school is very dependent on parents. Of course, we have surveys these days finding out which are good schools and which are not good schools on various criteria. But my point that I was making, and I'd like to reiterate it, that there will continue to be problems till we raise the standards of our public schools, our government schools. And we need to focus on that particularly. Then this issue of neighborhood. The neighborhood is a very, very important point for admission, and we need to follow it. But in the same breath, we need to have schools in all the areas. Good schools. And you know, I mean, another point that I do want to make that comes up in this. I heard lots of people also saying that they have they get fake certificates to show that they live in a place. As a principal, do you see that a lot? No, of course, there are ways around everything, and people do find because they're desperate to get in. But if I'm going to stay, say, 11 or 12 kilometers away from the school, and I make a fake certificate and I get in, but my child is going to be, you know, busing up and down, and it'll take him at least an hour and a half every day in the morning and in the evening, and all that pollution, it's terrible for the child, really. Okay. So, I think the neighborhood is good, but we need to have schools in the neighborhood.